Good evening, everyone. My name is Charmaine Bogan, and I would love to introduce to you and invite you to watch this year's 2022 Macedonia Mental Health Symposium. We've got a lot of great speakers today, so I hope you tune in, stay in. You will be so educated. You're going to love it. I am here to introduce to you today our mayor. And I will read her bio for you. Victoria Garcia Snyder. She's the mayor of Albion. Vicky is a lifelong resident of Albion. She graduated from Albion High School in 1985, enrolled at Albion College as a first-generation student, and in 1989 received her bachelor's degree in education. She later received a master's degree from Western Michigan University in Student Affairs Administration in Higher Education in 2005. Vicky's work experience includes working in the Power for Kids program, selling advertising for the Albion Recorder, real estate agent for John Sharp Real Estate, and as a volleyball coach at Albion High School. She has volunteered in the community as an ASO regional director, Irish Hills Girl Scouts council member, St. John's School Board member, and various other roles. Vicki has spent over 20 years working in higher education. She has spent the bulk of these years assisting first-generation college-bound students navigate the college search process, and is currently the Assistant Director of Admissions at Jackson College. Vicki has been married to her husband, Ken, for 28 years and have 3 children, Rebecca, Isabel, and Raymond. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our mayor, Victoria Garcia Snyder.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome, and I appreciate being invited to be the kickoff for our second night of this wonderful symposium. And I do want to say how grateful I am to our Macedonia Baptist Church for organizing and spearheading this much needed conversation. Those of us that pay attention to what is going on in the mental health care field know the importance of sharing information to those in need and to those that work with the public on a daily basis. Mental health issues affect everyone, but people of color, especially the Black, Latinx, Asian, and Native American population, have higher rates of some mental health disorders and face greater disparities in getting help than our Caucasian counterparts. Those issues are primarily due to lack of access to services resulting from a number of factors, including our own cultural stigma. These disparities have existed for decades. But what we're seeing is that some of the stresses that are associated with being a member of a marginalized group have been exacerbated during the pandemic. During the pandemic, many people have experienced mental health stressors, such as unemployment, sick and lost loved ones, disrupted social lives, insecurity about the future, and a lack of inner peace. And minorities already disproportionately experience these misfortunes. Myself, growing up in a Latino household, I witnessed my mother deal with her bouts of depression and not really understanding the true demons that she had to deal with by herself because of the cultural stigma of seeking out help. It was a sign of weakness to seek out help, and this was not something that we spoke about in our household. Sharing feelings and emotions was not commonplace, and if someone did discuss problems, it was more along the lines of the physical side effects of the mental health that came to surface. It wasn't until a failed suicide attempt that brought to light her true issues. And it wasn't until that point that I was truly made aware that she had depression. So it wasn't until she was in her late 50s that she started receiving treatment for her depression. Luckily for my children, that generational and cultural stigma stopped with me. Since that time, I paid close attention to my loved ones and my friends for any indication of mental distress. That is why I believe that these open and honest conversations are so critical to have on a daily basis with those that are close to us. Many of you know that my true occupation is working in higher education, and I believe that the Lord brings people in our lives for a reason. I have no doubt that this elderly woman that I worked with today was brought to me just before I was to speak with you all for a reason. I'll share a brief story that she shared with me before I turn this over. This woman scheduled an appointment with me to discuss getting re-enrolled in college after 30 years of leaving. She wanted to return to earn her associate's degree, and turning 81 years old was not going to deter her. After talking about the process of getting re-enrolled, she shared with me the reason she decided to take this step. And I was really taken aback by her candor and willingness to share her story that it moved me to tears. She shared her life story of having to leave college when she got married and started a family of her own. She had put her own goals and ambitions on the back burner until her children had grown. And then at that point, she was working full time and couldn't quit her job because they needed her paycheck. She went on to say that once she and her husband had retired, his health began to fail, and she went into the number of years that she stayed by his side to care for him through his Alzheimer's and the toll that this had taken on her. She shared with me that her husband had passed away just a few months before COVID had shut us down, and the mental toll that it took on her as she sat by herself day after day mourning the loss of her husband, but also the life that she had then hoped to live. She mentioned that it wasn't until recently that she had gone into therapy and now has a new outlook on life. The saving grace of God that got her to the place where she could receive therapy to get her out of this darkness was nothing less than a miracle. Please know that as the mayor of Albion, I am fully supportive of any initiative and services that we can provide for our community. I am so thankful to be a part of these conversations to find ways to support our neighbors and to bring more awareness of mental health well-being. I am here to serve my community, know that we are doing things to improve the lives of everyone that does live in Albion. So with that, I just wanted to thank you all again for inviting me to share a few words with you all. My own journey with mental health, knowing the importance of this. And I bless you all for your work. And please just know how much it is appreciated, not only by myself, but the rest of the Albion community.
Thank you, Mayor, so much for sharing those stories with us. They were very inspirational. My name is Melitha Robinson, and I am a member of the Macedonian Missionary Baptist Church. Today, I will be introducing Anthony Allen. Mr. Allen is a certified trauma practitioner, senior resilience coach, and trainer for Star Commonwealth. He has a background in social, emotional learning, and child behavior development. He owns a master's in education with a trauma focus from Spring Arbor University. Mr. Allen has strong experience in unpacking the behavior of others in their private logic to provide interventions, recommendations, and behavior support planning. Throughout his professional experience, he has served in a wide variety of different executive, functioning, and social emotional roles that seek to implement behavioral strategies and interventions in school settings. Mr. Allen's passion for trauma and resilience not only comes from personal experience, but also fulfilling his mission in giving back to others in a way that people in his life gave for him. While working with people of educational settings is most of his professional experience, Mr. Allen also fulfills his passion working with youth through athletic coaching opportunities. With further ado, I do present Mr. Anthony Allen.
Thank you for that warm introduction. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Macedonia Church, for putting this on. Mental health is important today. And I just want to really jump into it. You heard my introduction. I have a master's in trauma and resilience. I work in this field. I work with a lot of not just students, but adults trying to connect emotions to behavior. Today, my agenda, if I can start my slide, my agenda is, next slide, please. The agenda today is trauma and trauma exposure. We're going to be talking about that, the 3 E's of trauma. Also, how trauma gets diagnosed and misdiagnosed. There's some similarities in what we may find when we start to take a look at trauma. And I'm going to briefly touch on emotional intelligence, but then I'm going to go into spiritual resilience. Let's go to the next one. Now, I want to start off with this passage of a boy was healed. Is in Mark 9:14. I think it goes all the way to verse 29. But I'm just going to read the first 4, and then I'll touch on it as we go. And when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes was questioning him. The smart people was asking questions of that day. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him, saluted him. And he asked the scribes, what question ye with them? And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto you my son, which hath a dumb spirit. And whoever he taketh him, and And wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and he foameth, and he gnasheth it with his teeth, and pineth away. And I spoke to the disciples that they should cast him out, but they could not. So this was a conversation that between the scribes. They also mentioned that there was kids suffering from mental illness, and the disciples couldn't even help him at that moment. Let's go to the next one. So trauma is any experience that leaves a person feeling hopeless, helpless, fearing for their life, survival, their safety. This experience can be real or perceived. Now, when I think about this passage, I'm thinking about the family, the boy, the family, and the community, and the effect of what was going on with that individual and how that may have been controlling emotions and behavior in that situation. Most people deal with the healing and the deliverance in this situation, but there's an emotional component to this. And that trauma of going through this over and over had to have some kind of effect on the people. Let's go to the next one. So trauma is also a sensory experience. The body has a memory. If you think about post-traumatic stress disorder, how war veterans come back home and they still suffer from what they saw or sounds that they heard. Even like I lived in a neighborhood that had frequent gunshots, and when I moved out, it was a storm one night, and it was just like boom, and my body thought it was a gunshot, and before I could think, I had already jumped on the floor. I've been in a car accident where I was going around a curve and I hit the wall on the expressway, and for a year and a half, every time my body went around the curve, my body felt like it was once again in an accident. And people who suffer from trauma, there's different levels of trauma, but when we suffer from trauma, it's a sensory experience. So there can be sensation, feelings, and emotions that are connected to that incident that will bring that incident back up like it was real. So for instance, maybe the boy in the story, maybe he just had a cough, but the mama would probably look and get all nervous, like maybe he's getting ready to have another seizure. But that's what trauma does to us. Trauma is recorded in the body. It's not just, it's an experience that we go through that involves our body. Next one. So there are 3 E's of trauma: the event, experience, and the effect. Now, number one, trauma is not the same for everybody. There's situations that you may go through, and you may be fine, but the next person will go through it, and it may become trauma because that stress will last longer than 4 to 6 weeks, and it will start to play an effect on the mind and the body. Now, there's always an event. How we experience that event will generally determine whether it would affect us emotionally for longer than it should. For instance, you might be with a trusted person and something happens, and that will trigger trauma because you didn't expect, you thought you were safe and things of that nature. You could be, I know a situation where kids were locked in a closet when they were little, and now they're older and they're scared to be alone or trapped inside of any closed environment. But that's the trauma, and the body effect will bring all that back up. Also, next, there's symptoms and reactions to trauma. There's flashbacks. Some people have traumatic dreams, sleep problems. You can get all the way into avoidance. When you get into avoidance, you get the detachment. It's hard to keep healthy relationships because of trust and fear. Some people can get into self-harm. There's a lot of distorted sense of self. You because of the experience that you go through, you start to take on the effect that maybe you start to second guess yourself. There's aggressive, reckless behavior. If you look at what's there, those are symptoms and reactions of trauma. Let's get to the next one. So there's also this disease model. You know, we live in a time where everybody's trying to label something or put or classify it as a disease that requires drug to control behavior. And what trauma says is sometimes you don't necessarily need the drug. You just need the understanding of connecting that behavior to the emotion and finding out where that fear or that traumatic pressure came from that's producing the behavior that you see. And so what we talk about is some people can't sit still because of fear, because of what's constantly attacking the mind. And sometimes people will find that in this profession, some people that has been diagnosed with ADHD, we find that are really suffering from a traumatic incident. I know a situation where a young lady was afraid of being in the classroom because the classroom was loud. But when I had the conversation with her, and they had her on depressive meds and stuff like that, but when I had a conversation with her, come to find out that she lived in a loud environment, and the mom and dad were getting into a scuffle, and the father missed the mother and hit the child that the mother was holding. So now when she's in an environment that's loud and chaotic, her body starts to shake and she starts to feel unsafe. And connecting that emotion to that experience was the difference in helping her through her traumatic situation. Let's go to the next one. So there are overlapping symptoms when it comes to trauma and ADHD. Like I talked about, a person that can't sit still, that person could be classified as ADHD, but maybe that the thoughts that person is having keeps them uncomfortable. The irritability, when you don't feel safe, or when you're constantly thinking about the next best bad thing that's going to happen, it's kind of hard to sit still and be comfortable. But what I'm saying is a lot of our mental thing, our mental diagnoses are not, sometimes do not need medication. Although I understand medication is helpful in certain situations, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is sometimes it's so similar to trauma and traumatic events that it looks like a mental disorder when really the body has memorized a challenging event or has been through a struggle, and that body holds on to it and is ignited through triggers, sensations, and feelings. It could be a cologne. You could smell a certain cologne and it'll take you back, or you get all scared because you remember that smell. You associate that smell with something else. And one of the things that is good to do is to try to backtrack and finding out, whether that's through counseling, therapy, or mentors, or supportive family members. These are people who can help with trauma. So let's get into emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behaviors and relationship. Most people are unaware of what the emotions that they even going through. When we get into emotional intelligence, there are 4 competencies involved in emotional intelligence. And one is self-awareness, one is self-management, social awareness, and relationship. But I'm going to talk about the first 2, self-awareness and self-management. You cannot manage what you're not aware of. So when we think about trauma and toxic stress and people who go, if you're not aware, if you don't understand that emotion, if we cannot connect that emotion to that behavior, and that behavior is hard to manage because of there's not a self-discovery there. So the first thing is that self-discovery piece, and unraveling things and start to understand what makes me tick. Therefore, I can manage my emotions a little better. And that's the importance of emotional intelligence. It says 36% of people are able to identify their emotions accurately as it happened. So that means 64% of people, more than half of the people, cannot accurately identify their emotions. So when we're thinking about trauma, and trauma is an experience, and it's a sensory experience that can be triggered by emotions, sensations, and feelings. If you're unaware of your feelings, if you don't really understand what makes you tick, it's going to be a little harder to manage the effects of the traumatic situation. So when we're dealing with kids, we know that every experience is the emotional experience first. And we have signals that travel through our body and work their way up to the brain for communication and interpretation. And a lot of times those feelings get stuck in our emotional brain, especially when it comes to kids, because the kids your prefrontal cortex is where you do your rational thinking, your understanding, your logical thinking. And so that's how, once it gets to our emotional brain, our rational brain makes sense of what's happening. Well, if you don't understand those emotions, or if you're unable to identify those emotions, they get stuck or hijacked in the emotional brain. And that's what we see from people who suffer from trauma. You see on the outside the effect of what's going on in the inside, because there's no rational thinking to explain what's going on, because there's the self-awareness is limited. It's harder to manage these emotions. And that's what we try to do with emotional intelligence, is start to, if you know somebody that's struggling with trauma, that self-awareness piece is key to helping them manage that trauma, that behavior. You don't change your behavior until you change the way you think or approach that particular situation. Let's go to the next one. So that leads me to spiritual resilience. There's regular resilience, but I like to talk about spiritual resilience. And spiritual resilience is resilience that has the power of the spirit. Let's go to the next slide. So resilience is overcoming obstacles despite adversity. By that very definition, that points to an adversary, an imposing person or force that we overcome when we're encountering our obstacles. Spiritual resilience is not just what the world refers to as resilience. It includes the power of the spirit. The Bible called the spirit the helper, the comforter. Many things today, many things, they try to leave God out of real true healing. Does not happen unless God is involved. He is the true healer. And so when we think about resilience, you hear that word all the time, but it's an empty word unless you understand who the adversary is. So let's go to the next one. I'm going to talk about 5 steps that foster resilience, and that's suffering. Something always happens. Tribulation, we don't get to determine how long we're going to go through this suffering, but endurance, that stamina is important. What you do, the skills, the people, all that in that particular stage, that helps you make it through your traumatic or stressful situation. When you think about anything challenging that you went through during that endurance stage, how was that stamina built? When I went through my accident, the car accident, and I went through my tribulation period was 1.5 years. One day my dad told me, trust the car. He gave me that knowledge. He poured it into me, but he also told me, don't just trust God, don't just trust the car, trust God first, then trust the car. That was enough stamina to help me persevere until I could get to survival. So let's go back to this story, this passage that I started out with. Next slide, please. There's suffering. There's always something that happened. In this particular case, this kid was robbed of his speech. He was having seizures. He was grinding his teeth. Nobody really knew how to help him. And that's how we are when we're dealing with trauma or traumatic people. We don't really, something always happens, but we have to know what we're up against. Ephesians 6:12 say, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual weaknesses and high places. Sometimes it's not the person that's standing in front of you. It's what you need to break off of that person through prayer and other things, as we'll talk about later. But when you're dealing with trauma is an attack on the mind, because what happens is it starts to control your thoughts. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but know who you really up against. When you're dealing with people suffering from stress and trauma, know who you up against. It might not be the individual. That individual might be the one who is suffering. And then in this story, the boy was a boy and he was suffering. And they even asked, the disciples couldn't even drive out the suffering that he was having. Go on to the next one, please. So that tribulation period is what I talked about. You don't always get to determine how long you suffer. You think of it as a storm or or the attacks that we go under, and we don't always know how long they're gonna last. But I know that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So if the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, that means God comes to bring life, he comes to restore, and he comes to rebuild. And understanding who I'm up against, and then knowing that what God is all about, I can understand that this is an attack. And sometimes when I'm dealing traumatic trauma, is often an attack on who we are or what we stand for or anything good that we're about. Next one. So that endurance. This is all about stamina, and in this endurance, who are the people around you? Are you into such thing as your word? Are you attending places that build you up and pour into you? In this particular, they asked the boy. They asked how long had this boy been going through it, and had been going through it since childbirth. And if you notice in Acts 10:38, it says that how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and power, and how he went around doing good and healing all who were under the power of the devil. And that points back to understanding what this really is and how we can fight this attack, situations that come to kill, to steal, and destroy us, and how that attack on our mind is going. But that endurance is how, and it happens. The endurance stage happens before we enter the actual event. What are we doing before we enter the traumatic situation? Because the storm is coming, and we don't know whether the storm is going to be traumatic. And that's how we get to traumatic experience, because people go through challenges and changes and storms, and it end up becoming an emotional hangover for them. But that the people that are grounded and have good support systems, whether they in the elders of the church, the pastors, the mothers that's praying, the school teachers that's praying, that's how you build that endurance. So when you do go through something, you have the stamina to persevere through it. And that's what we find is this is the stage where most people fall down. They give up. They throw the towel in because the faith is may not be there, or they just get so tired. But we know that the battle was already won, and we have to remember that from the beginning. Let's go to the next one. So despite everything that's going on, persistence is doing something despite difficulty or delay in achievement. So despite everything that's going on, if we have the right endurance, we're gonna make it through this stage of perseverance. And you'll see perseverance all throughout the Bible. For the weapons of our war are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. That suggests that the weapons is gonna sometimes are beyond our realm. And then this particular passage, if you go down to the end, they asked, okay, well, why couldn't we do that? And he answered, something don't happen unless you pray and fast. So people that are dealing with traumatic situations and they're not overcoming them, one way of helping that is having that spiritual power. And sometimes that's as simple as prayer and fasting. Prayer is a conversation with God. And where's my notes at? Sorry about that. But prayer is a conversation with God, but fasting is a sacrifice. I believe Jesus did that on the cross. He prayed, and he was a sacrifice for our sins and what we're going to go through, and it's always consistent. So in this particular situation, the scribes were talking about it, the disciples were trying to do it, and they could not do it. And Jesus came along because of the power that he had, and he was able to break that. And that goes back to we're not always up against the flesh. Sometimes we need that power of the Spirit. And I wish that we could bring that back into the schools. I wish that we could bring that back into the places where we work with kids, because that's one of the things that may be missing is the power of the Spirit. So you get teachers praying here and there, but maybe if we got more into that, we would be able to build that endurance so that more and more students, and not just students, but adults, can persevere through traumatic situations. Let's go to the next one. So that leads me to the fifth one, is survival. Something is always going to happen. We don't get to control how long it's going to happen, but what we do to build that endurance, who we're around, the skills that we have, what our beliefs plugged into, what power source are we using, will build that endurance so that we can persevere to the end and reach survival instead of survival mode. A lot of people are just going through the motions because they're overwhelmed, and they have so much going on, not just a particular incident that they're struggling with, but there's multiple incidents. Right now in society, there's several things that's going on that we can consider traumatic. We can consider COVID traumatic because it has lasted longer than 4 to 6 weeks and has just taken a toll on people's emotion. And some people are just going through the motions, while other people are confronting it, and they got this endurance about them that they're able to make it through. But we see that the Bible tells us to protect our mind and to be changed by our mind, and the devil attacks our mind. And when I think about trauma and the experience of trauma, it triggers and it brings up things that you've been through, and it doesn't let you conquer them the way that you should. That's an attack on the mind. And so to break that is to understand the spiritual warfare that's actually going on. So from trauma, you might hear trauma in the secular world, in the carnal world, as something that lasts longer than 4 to 6 weeks and all these other things. But it's also in the spiritual world, it could be a spiritual battle. It could be something that needs to be prayed and fasted out. It could be something that you need to get around people that are anointed and have the power of the Holy Spirit to help you through it. But while you're going through it, that perseverance and that patience is key. This particular boy and his mom and the community have been going through this since birth, and all of a sudden, in the midst of their trying to figure this out, and the disciples fumbling over, Jesus came along and took care of it. Let's go to the next one. So, if we think about athletes, something always happens. It's a game or event. It has a particular length of time, and what they do for endurance happens before the game. The running, the drills, the conditioning, the plays, the coaching, all that happens before the actual situation. And then when they get into the actual situation, they have what they need to endure to make it. Even if it goes into overtime, they have what they need to make it through it. They can persevere because they are prepared, and they reach a point of survival. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you. Something always going to happen. You don't control how long it's going to happen, but what kind of endurance you have, what power source are you plugged into? Do you understand the spiritual warfare that you under? Do you understand that the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy? Do you understand that even if God is not there, he's still on his way? That's how you persevere into survival. So let me say this. What if you was a boxer and you trained 6 months for a championship fight, and you was really fit, best shape of your life, and you was ready to go, and then you get there and the opponent is invisible? Now you need something else. You need something beyond you, outside of your realm, to fight what's in front of you. And sometimes trauma is like that. You could be prepared for it, in shape, but it's outside of you, which means you need to tap into that source to have that wisdom and that guidance to defeat what's in front of you. But when you have that, you still feel prepared. So let's just think about that. Some people show up and they good people, they in good shape, and something hits them, and then all of a sudden they can't fight it because they can't see it. And that's what Ephesians 6 talks about. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle against what we can't see all the time. And to prepare for something you can't see is to get out of the carnal mind and get into the things of the spirit so that you can have that power source of the spirit flowing through you. Let's go to the next one. I think that's it. So I just ended with this verse. Until now, you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. Now is not the time for what we're going through to be dependent on self. There's a lot of things out here, and if you enter your word and if you believe like I believe, you will see the spiritual battle that we in. You will see the trauma that is coming up against us. You will see all that we see, and that we have to plug into the sources and build up that stamina that helps us endure. And on that note, that wraps it up. I didn't have much time to really go into it, but I think we're going to do some questions, a few questions if we can. I believe so. So let me check with the moderators. How do we deal? Here's a question. How do we deal with one who has caused the trauma? The one who has caused the trauma, the first thing that comes to mind is if it's still going on, there's a safety part that maybe you have to protect yourself against. And in the long run, whether you're around that person or not, it's going to take some forgiveness to get past that. You're going to have to forgive him. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself as well to make it through trauma. But once you start to forgive and understand that people are people, there are bad people in this world and there are good people in this world, but then there are good people who make mistakes. And I don't want to get into judging people, but let's think about you. Forgive the person, and then begin to fill yourself with the love of God, and look at yourself through the eyes of God and see yourself as he sees you, and then he will direct you according to who you are and how to make it through that situation. If we self-medicate to avoid trauma, does that stop or interrupt the process of becoming resilient? No, it doesn't. Medicine can be helpful. The thing that you want to do is both. Because you're taking the medicine, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to heal you. A lot of medicine does not heal you. It helps you to maintain or stay afloat. You still, if you take the medicine away, you still have to deal with the trauma or understand or unravel the trauma that you've been going through. And the medicine can help. And I know people who are on medication, and I don't frown on that at all, but I still know that there's a certain level of awareness that they have to understand or get to be able to manage that. And that's what the medication does. The medication is is helping you manage it until you can do it yourself. And some people have a hard time, and some people take longer than others. That's okay. But don't forget the power source, and always have that faith that you can overcome your situation. How do you develop coping skills to deal with them and move forward and live your life? First of all, when that question, I'm situations that I've been in and help people, you have to realize that you're not in the same situation, even though it feels like it. So when I was in that car accident and I hit that curb, every time, it doesn't matter. Every time my body did this, I felt like I was in the accident, and I would get scared and start yelling at the driver and like, slow down. They wasn't even going fast all the time, but my body had this memory, and I had to, the first step was like, okay, this is a different situation. Even though it feels like it, even though I could get in another accident, that is not the case. So I had to learn how to separate my episodes, then break down the episode. And that's what I deal with when I'm dealing with people. there are some episodes that overlap, but for the most part, can we deal with certain episodes? Because we're constantly under attack, and we don't just have one. We rarely have one bad situation, but we have a lot of challenging situations, and sometimes they become skewed and they start looking all like the same thing, and sometimes they not. There's an attack that happens over and over, and the devil has no time limit on what he wants to do, but he has a scheme. He's a schemer, and so he might set you up when you're 3 years old only to try to get you when you're 30. But separating those incidents and understanding what you up against and bringing that power into your situation and then calling it out. This is not that. And that can help you move forward. What resources are available in Albion for youth and adults that suffer with tremendous trauma through your agency? We do a lot of training, not spiritual training, but we have a lot of trainings on trauma and resilience. We also we have workshops. We have books that you can buy online that will help you through it. There's just a lot of literature that we have on star.org.com. Star.org. We have a lot of literature that you can purchase. And if you had an agency and you wanted to take your agency through training and trauma, is really in depth, and it was really helpful. For instance, when I went through the training, it made everything make sense to me. How the body, there's a biological thing that happens in our body when we suffer from trauma. You know, our body naturally has a fight, flight, freeze response system. That means that anytime we experience stress, our body is going to decide without our permission to either run, fight, or freeze. You've seen some people shut down or go into shock. That's freeze. When you start to understand that scientific part of your body, you start to understand the conversation that is going on inside of your body. Everybody sees the conversation on the outside. They see what happens. They see how you act. With the boy in the story, everybody saw what he was going through. But what was going on the inside of his body, that if he had known that, to connect that with what was going on the outside of the body. If I knew that when I was in the car, I wanted to get out, that's flight. The first thing I wanted to do was get out. And that's what my body was doing. When you start to understand those things, now you can start to shortcut what you're experiencing and how you're experiencing it. You begin to take control by understanding how God created the body. The body is designed to heal itself. He was the master craftsman. And so he has designed our bodies to work in such a way that he knows that the enemy wants to kill, steal, and destroy us. But he said, I come that I could bring you life. I come to bring you life. Is there any more questions? I just want to leave you with this. Where we are at in the society, we're going to see more and more people suffer from stress and trauma. And it's going to come down to spiritually being grounded and understanding the resources that we have outside of our bodies, the power of the spirit, and that patience and faith, but also understanding how society tries to leave God out of everything, which forces you to feel like you're a victim. Even if you're suffering from trauma, you are not forever a victim. You are somebody who went through something, but you are not forever a victim. There's nowhere in the Bible that says that we are forever victims based on our experience. Remember that. And so you may have been through something and you had a hard time getting over it, but that doesn't mean that you can't or you won't, because he designed us that way, because he knew how the adversary operates. And so thank you very much for joining me this evening, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Allen, for that. My name is Renita Craig, and I want to welcome you all again to our Mental Health Symposium. I will be introducing our next two speakers. Up first, we have Dr. William Nettleton. Dr. Nettleton is an assistant professor in WMed's Department of Family and Community Medicine and medical director of Kalamazoo County Health and Community Service Department and Calhoun County Public Health Department. He sees patients and teaches resident physicians and medical students as part of WMed's Family Medicine Residency Program located at Kalamazoo's Family Health Center. He also attends to hospitalized patients on the Family Medicine Inpatient Service at Bronson Methodist Hospital and teaches medical students at WMed. Dr. Nettleton attended Hope College, where he earned degrees in philosophy and biology in 2007. He has a master's degree in public health and graduated from Wayne State University School of Medicine in 2012. Dr. Nettleton completed a 4-year dual residency in family medicine and preventative medicine public health at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, Oregon. He is board certified in both family medicine and general preventative medicine and public health. Dr. Nettleton served as the 2020 president of the Michigan Association of Preventative Medicine and Public Health Physicians. He was recognized as a 40 under 40 leader in public health by the Beaumont Foundation in 2021. Welcome, Dr. Nettleton. Our other speaker is none other than First Lady Justine Mckenzie, Senior Manager of Operation Compliance. First Lady Mckenzie is the adoring wife of our pastor, Bobby Mckenzie, to whom she has happily been married to for 24 years. She is also the proud mother of Jeffrey and Jamila Mckenzie. Lady Justine is a great leading lady and is a dedicated help to her husband in ministry since their arrival at Macedonia. She loves the Macedonia church family and enjoys greeting members in person, during online shout-outs, and welcoming our new members. Professionally, Lady Justine has spent most of her career in the pharmaceutical industry and is an engineer project manager. She currently serves as co-chair of diversity and inclusion for her site and also co-chairs the Global Black Community Colleague Resource Group. She is a huge proponent of education and holds bachelor's degrees from both Yale University in African and African American Studies and Case Western Reserve University in Chemical Engineering. Her favorite scripture is Psalms 37:4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Welcome, First Lady.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for being with us, Dr. Nettleton.
Happy to be here. Good evening.
Good evening to you. So, Dr. Nettleton, I just want to say it's a pleasure to present with you. I just want to interject a few comments here and there, but we are really, really here to hear from you.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm so privileged to be here and share any information that you and the church may find helpful.
Outstanding.
So it may be helpful. I think folks might be interested in kind of maybe where we're at with COVID-19 and where we could be going.
Yes.
I know there's some questions maybe about this BA2 variant, maybe hearing about the news.
Yes.
And then maybe boosters and things about COVID-19 boosters. And then I think we should just open it up. I think it's often helpful just to hear what are questions on people's minds. And sometimes folks may be a little bit shy, but, go ahead and ask the questions. That's kind of why we're here.
Well, I know that our online viewers will have a few, but I would like to start with, where do you feel that the pandemic is now? Of course, it started off with really explosive rates, people getting the disease that, of course, were unvaccinated because nobody was vaccinated. Where would you say that we are now that we have had vaccines available and now boosters as well? For many people, a second booster as well as a second vaccination. Where would you say we are now?
Well, I think a lot of questions that people mind is the pandemic over? I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. I mean, spring break just got passed, and we were doing a lot of things that we weren't really doing just a couple months ago. We're kind of feeling more normal. But what I would encourage is us to think about the pandemic in a different way, in 3 different phases: a recovery or post-surge phase, a readiness phase, and the response phase. And so maybe we can walk through each one of those. So right now, we're in what's known as the post-surge or recovery phase. We just got out of the Omicron surge just a couple months ago. So this is the time where we monitor. We see what's happening in our communities in Southwest Michigan. So we monitor a leading edge, which is called wastewater surveillance. And believe it or not, we're actually looking for virus in our sewage, in the Battle Creek watershed area, in the Kalamazoo watershed area. And it's actually the leading edge of if something may be changing in our community. People are getting less tests, at the doctor's office. And so we have to have other means of seeing what's going on. We also look at our community rates, how much COVID there is in community with testing. So right now we're in the monitoring phase, the post-surge recovery phase. This is the time to get vaccinated if you are not vaccinated, and to get boosted if you are not boosted and are medically eligible, particularly if you're older or have an underlying medical condition. Well, then, what's this readiness phase? Well, something may change, and we've already experienced this many times throughout the pandemic. We may see, a spike in our virus in the wastewater surveillance. We may see a spike in cases occur in another part of Michigan. We may have a new variant that comes along. All of that may transition us to what's known as a readiness phase of the pandemic. That is when we are preparing our community to say, hey, we should be doing more testing. Hey, you may begin to start considering changing masking policies, for example. And of course, to continue to get vaccinated. That is what would be known as a readiness phase. And that's really in preparation for a possible surge, which is the final phase, a surge or a response phase. That's when you hear from local and state public health about increased risk in the community, saying, hey, we encourage a change in masking policy. Hey, we encourage everybody to be testing much more regularly and monitoring for symptoms. So the pandemic isn't over, but we are in a much better place. We see across the world lots of cases, lots of hospitalizations that are still happening. But what's different is as we go into 2022, that COVID-19 is likely to be more predictable, in the sense that perhaps we can anticipate more cases when something changes in society, like we go back to school. Or, for example, when it gets cold again in the fall or winter. Those are predictable things that we can anticipate. The unpredictable is a new COVID-19 variant, which we've already experienced before. And that, I think, is a better way to think about where we are and where we could be going in the pandemic, instead of just saying, oh, I think it's over.
Thank you for explaining that. I know that a week and a half ago, I saw rates had come down and were continuing to come down, and it looked like we were at the tail end. Then by last week, we started seeing numbers increase again, certainly in the Kalamazoo area, but we saw that really nationwide. I know people who felt like, okay, this is done, I don't need masks anymore, suddenly are testing positive. Do you think that will continue, the kind of waves of we're down and then something causes it to go up and then we come back down, but maybe not as severe as we're going forward in time?
I think that's a nice way of putting it. We can think about this is that when the risk changes, our mitigation measures, or masking, for example, or testing strategy should change with that risk. So, for example, after the Omicron wave, you saw all those masking policies drop. And that's a reasonable thing to do on a population level when the risk has changed. But if it changes again, that means, well, we should change our policies once again. And that can be kind of confusing. And that's what we've seen throughout the entire pandemic, when the evidence has changed. In other words, hey, we learned something new, so therefore we're not going to do what we did in the past. Or the situation changed, like we had a different variant. And so then policy recommendations would change, or public health medical recommendations would change. And a lot of people found that confusing. But I would come back and point to, it's when the evidence changes or the situation changes is when the response changes as well. So that kind of brings us to BA2, this new kind of subvariant of Omicron, the much more infectious variant that's circulating right now. We're seeing upticks in the Northeast, for example. And we're also seeing an uptick gradually in Michigan. Mm-hmm. So I think what we can anticipate going into late April into May is indeed an increase in cases in Southwest Michigan, including Calhoun County. I think it's going to be a slow rise and a slow peak and a slower decline. I don't think we're going to have a big spike that we did with Omicron, for example. And what we haven't seen, like in other parts of the United States and the world, is also an increase in hospitalizations. So that also will be a change too. So we are going to see an increase in cases. Definitely, I think it's going to occur in Michigan in the coming month, but it's not going to be as severe, and it's not going to likely increase hospitalizations. It's also unlikely that we'll pivot to what I characterized as that readiness phase, or in other words, when we're preparing for a large surge. So it's going to be kind of like this gradual increase and then this gradual decrease. So that's another thing to anticipate right now, particularly if you are older or have an underlying medical condition, is now is the time to get vaccinated and boosted if you are eligible. It takes about 2 weeks or so for that booster to kick in. Now, my parents have asked me about, and they're above the age of 65, hey, should I get that, second booster if I've already gotten the primary series and the first booster? I think it's a really good question. And there is more, you should always talk to your doctor first, plain hands down. But the things I would consider are the following is, hey, one, what's happening in your community? What's the case rate? If the cases are going up, well, that likely means your risk is going up. What are your underlying medical conditions? Are you severely immunocompromised or are more apt to be hospitalized? That increases your risk. Are you going to go to travel maybe in the next month or two? Maybe that will increase your risk as well. All of those would be considerations for you to take into account with your doctor about whether you should get that second booster, for example. If you haven't gotten your booster yet at all, you definitely should get that first booster. What we know for sure about that first booster is that reduces your risk for severe disease, hospitalization, and death.
So I have another question for you. I work at the Pfizer facility in Kalamazoo where the vaccine has been manufactured now for a little while. And we don't make the tablet Paxlovid at our site. But have you had occasion to prescribe Paxlovid at all in your work as a medical professional?
Ooh, excellent question. Bottom line
or the Merck tablet as well.
Yeah. Well, and we do know that the Paxlovid has better efficacy at preventing severe disease and hospitalization when compared. Better data, as not head-to-head data, but better trial data itself compared to a sugar pill at preventing that severe disease than the molnupiravir or Merck pill. So we do know that. But to your point, doctors probably are not prescribing enough. And I think it's good that we're bringing it up on this forum to ask your doctor. So let's talk about what these pills are for. So these pills, which are taken by mouth, are meant for somebody who is infected already with COVID-19. So in other words, you're sick and you have a positive test with COVID-19. The other important thing is that it works best, and the intent is to keep you out of the hospital. It works best the sooner you get the prescription and the sooner you take the medicine. If you wait, more than several days, it's likely going to be less effective at doing what it's supposed to do, which is to keep you out of the hospital. And so the best thing is to talk with your doctor about a test to treat program or your local pharmacist. about getting a test result that's positive, sharing that result with them, saying, hey, I heard about this. I am older. I have underlying medical conditions. Am I eligible for this pill? I want to be kept out of the hospital, and to take that route. And that's what the intent is, as opposed to the vaccine. The vaccine is to prevent you from getting sick at all from COVID-19. And it's very good at doing so to keep you out of the hospital. The COVID-19 pill, the Merck pill or the Pfizer pill, is for if you are already infected with COVID-19. So I just want to draw the distinction with that. And your doctor and your pharmacist can help you with that. So get that test, get that result, call your pharmacist, call your doctor. If they don't know, you can call the health department and we can help you there too, to point you in the right direction, or at least to find you a pharmacy that should prescribe.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have a question. Will COVID be like the flu and become a normal vaccine that we may need?
Excellent question. So there's been a lot of controversy about, comparisons of COVID-19 and influenza. And the challenge with that is that the virus has changed over time, and the risk has changed over time. And it also depends who you are and what your age is. So whenever you hear someone say, well, it's just like the flu now, you should ask, well, in what population are you talking about? And then at what stage of the pandemic are you talking about? And particularly with pediatrics, I've heard it compared a lot about that. So my editorial note about that is that kids shouldn't die of COVID-19. And we should prevent what is preventable. And the COVID-19 vaccine is approved for all those who are 5 years and older. And so I'll share, as a parent and as a family doctor, I recommend for my pediatric patients as well as my adult patients to get vaccinated. I got my 5-year-old daughter vaccinated as soon as I could, particularly during the Delta wave. The vaccine for 5-year-olds and above came out when Delta was circulating and was very high. And so that's what I would say about the thinking about these comparisons with influenza and COVID-19. So, but in general, what we know about Omicron is that it's less severe in terms of putting someone in the hospital than the Delta variant, but it is much more infectious. So we had that big surge in January, February. We were very concerned that we're going to have a lot more people become infected because it's much more infectious. But we were more fortunate to have vaccines. And we had a bunch of folks who'd already gotten COVID-19. So we had a little bit of wall there to prevent a more severe outcome. That's not true in, for example, Hong Kong, over in China, where they had less older people vaccinated, and they had a population that hadn't really been yet exposed to the virus. So even with Omicron there in that population, put a lot of people in the hospital. A lot of people are dying unnecessarily. So that's what I would, so that's why it sounds more nebulous as I'm talking here in this conversation, because there are a lot of depends about that.
Sure.
But to your point, I think the question really is about endemic. Hey, is this becoming, quote, endemic? We're getting there, but we're not there yet, because the virus is still causing increased morbidity and mortality across the United States, even though things are vastly improved from 2020 and 2021. I do anticipate that eventually we'll probably have an annual, COVID-19 vaccine. Hey, I bet scientists will be able to combine it with the influenza vaccine. We'll have to see. And there probably will be a Omicron specific booster in the coming months or in the fall.
Thank you. Now, another question. When do you think we will be out of pandemic mode and back to normal? Or do you think we'll ever get back to normal?
Yes, we're getting there, but we're not there yet. I felt a lot back to normal after spring break. That's when I really felt it personally. If you can't see this, I didn't have a beard for over 2 years because I'm a healthcare worker and I was wearing an N95 mask and I really wanted a good fit taking care of patients.
Yes.
So I felt comfortable enough after my 3 vaccines and after our Omicron wave to go ahead and grow back my beard, for example. So for me, that was a little bit of returning to normal. But I would come back to those phases I talked about. Right now, we're in the post-surge recovery phase. Things may change. We may transition to a readiness phase, and then we may move to a response phase if necessary. But it's going to become more predictable, and we're on that path, and we'll have to see what the latter part of 2022 holds for us.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Nettleton, very happy that you have been able to be with us. And I think we'll have just one more question. Do you think a booster will eventually be approved for even younger children?
I think that's likely the case. We do know that for kids 12 years and older who are immunocompromised, they are eligible for a booster. And, whenever we make these decisions, we want to make sure we ask, what do we gain by doing the booster? And you should always ask your doctor about the outcome. Hey, is this booster, is the data supporting keeping me more out of the hospital in severe disease? Because that's what matters to people.
Right.
Or is this, and does this also include becoming infected? And there are some depends in there. And we're learning about those who've had prior COVID-19 disease, how long their protection lasts. And we're learning more about how long protection lasts if you've had the vaccine for, again, both becoming infected or going to the hospital. And both are important, and it depends on who you are about what matters more to you.
Outstanding. Well, thank you again for your time and for your participation tonight. And we look forward to seeing you in the future, either at Family Health Center or on one of our trips to Kalamazoo.
Very happy to be here. And I'm in Calhoun County every week. I grew up in Battle Creek. And so the connection with Albion and the rest of Calhoun County, very important. So thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we will probably invite you back. So thanks again.
You bet. Have a good evening.
You too.
Good evening. My name is Marquetta Frost, and I'm one of the coordinators for the Mental Health Symposium for you this evening. We hope you have enjoyed what you've heard, been educated, and had your questions answered. Please let us know that you're there tonight. Give us a shout out, a hello. And if you have more questions, please put them in the chat box because we do want to get those questions to our presenters so that they can present us with some answers for you. That is the whole point of this evening, is to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. This is kind of a speed dating, so we're going pretty quickly here, but we want as much information to get to our folks as possible. If you are enjoying this, will you please put something in the chat so that we know how you're feeling tonight, what's going on. As far as mental health goes, Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church is committed to bringing quality training, quality education and resources to you. We know what's affecting us. And as Albion, we are Albion. So we want to bring those same questions and education to our community. And so we will be having our next presenter coming up pretty soon. And so we just want you guys to relax and enjoy. We're just going to take a little 2-minute break and get your drink of water, go to the restroom, because it's going to get nothing but better from here. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Nettleton and our First Lady, Justine Mckenzie, that talked about COVID-19. COVID-19 is still here, as Dr. Nettleton has said. Most people want to trust that it is gone because we're not personally affected, but there are people still suffering and getting very ill, sickly, or passing away from COVID-19. So as a community, we must keep each other safe. If you don't want to get the vaccine, which is fine, they have the masks that help to stop the spread of germs, and we still have our social distancing. So practice one of those and make sure that we're washing our hands. Hand washing is one of the most important things that we can teach our children now that they are back in school. School is where the young people can't really social distance. And so we must make sure that we are teaching our children proper hand washing techniques and staying safe as much as we can. And so we just want to welcome you again. Make sure you let us know you're here, and we will turn it back over to our First Lady.
Hello again. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Sometimes when people are putting programs together, they are not necessarily sure what people need. And I am just so thankful that Macedonia is a church that is very in touch with what the community needs and it has a heart for the community. I'm very thankful that we have a pastor that is very clear that in order for a whole person to be healthy, we have to treat mental illness exactly the same way that we treat physical illness. And we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be healthy and not just depend on the word and not just depend on the Lord, but absolutely, completely depend on God. So we need to take care of ourselves as if it all depends on us and pray and follow God's instructions, because it really ultimately all depends on Him. We are interested in making sure that every time we have a mental health symposium, that is relevant to you and that it connects with you. So we're very interested in your feedback. One of the things that Sister Marquetta just shared so eloquently is that we would like to hear from you. We have heard questions from you in the Facebook arena, and thank you so much for every question. Thank you for every comment, because this works the best if it's working for you. We want to make sure that whether we're virtual, whether we're in person, that we are really connecting with you, because you are important to us. You're important to God. You're important to your family. You're important to your friends. And you're important to us at Macedonia. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your attendance today and yesterday. Let us know if there are presenters that you would like to hear more from, because we are very interested in making sure that we continue to bring you programs that meet your needs and that help us all grow. Thank you so much.
Good evening once again. Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. I'd like to take the moment to introduce our next presenter. I have known her for quite a long time. She is the director of the Marion E. Birch Adult Daycare Center in Battle Creek. I have known Mary because I sit on the board and also because Marian Birch was my mother. She does great work. I'm going to read her bio for you right now. Mary Frisbee is the director of the Marion E. Birch Adult Daycare Center located in Battle Creek, Michigan. The center is a department of the Calhoun County Medical Care Facility and is designed to provide medical and rehabilitation services to clients 18 years and older with physical and mental disabilities, restorative therapy, nursing, medical monitoring, dietary, and personal care needs are readily available. The center specializes in care for adults who are suffering from a variety of diagnoses, such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, stroke victims, head injuries, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, and social isolation. One very important aspect of using adult daycare services is the opportunity for social stimulation and interaction with others. During the day, the client will engage in a wide variety of activities, plus physical speech and occupational therapies if needed. A noon meal, morning and afternoon snacks are provided. Personal care services are an important feature at the center. The center can handle skilled care clients who have special needs, such as tube feeding and necessary injections. The center provides transportation to and from the center. All these services allow for the client to have multiple needs met during his or her visit to the center. I would like to introduce you to Mary Frisbee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here this evening to talk about Marion Birchadol Daycare Center and the services that we provide. Currently, the center is not open. We started off with the pandemic, and now that seems to be getting under control, the other obstacle we are running into is the lack of staffing. So it does require CNAs to take care of the individuals while they're in the daycare center. It does require a nurse so that we can administer medications and just the oversight of their medical needs. And then we need activity individuals who will work in groups so that we can provide a variety of different opportunities for them in their social needs that they require at the center. A typical day at the center is around a population of 55 to 60 individuals every day. Transportation is provided to the center, and we take them home in the evenings. A day will begin with them arriving, and we will take care of some of their personal needs when they first get at the center. We will provide them a breakfast. I recently, before the pandemic, had got and received funding through the school program. So with that, it allowed us to enhance our breakfast program, because in many cases we were finding that our elderly individuals who were coming had not had breakfast. So that was one of my gaps that I tried to fill as soon as I came on board as the director in 2017. Once they're at the center and they have their breakfast, we then take them into our large community room, and we begin the day with exercises. We like them to stretch, kind of get that cardio going a little bit. They do all their exercises while sitting in a chair. Then we announce to them all of the activities that are going on that day. Some of those activities could include a church class. It could be arts and crafts. It could be games such as Jeopardy, indoor golf. It could be crocheting. We have a men's group. We have a ladies group. It could be bingo some days. So it's we like the ability for them to have 2 to 3 different activities going on at the same time, so they can choose which one they would like. Our long activity room has the ability for us to put dividers and pull the walls, so we could actually have 3 separate groups going on in there. Then we have the large activity room where they do their exercises or more physical activities. And then we can use our dining room also for an activity. A lot of times we will do Bible study in there. That is a more quiet surrounding. We do have a back courtyard. In the summer, they have raised flower beds and vegetable beds. They have a butterfly garden of different flowers. They have picnic tables and benches out there. There's a sidewalk that surrounds the inside that's gated, where they can do exercises by the walking club. So we do some of those activities outside when the weather is permitting. Also in the back is the Kimball Pines Park, and we will use our large golf carts, and we'll put the clients in the golf cart, drive them out in the back so that they can, travel around out in the park. They really like that. That's a winner there. Before the pandemic, we would also take them on outings. So they would go for ice cream. We might go to Cornwell's Turkey Farm. They may go to Walmart to do some of their shopping around holidays. So we did try to, and it is one of the priorities, is to keep them connected to their community. So then they will have lunch, and we have a restorative lunch program where those that have more difficulties with their eating, we can do more one-on-one with them as far as feeding. And then we have the actual dining area so that they can socialize with their friends as they enjoy their lunch. Then we will go into the afternoon activities. They have the ability to choose again what activity they would like to participate in. Then we will do a snack, and the snack is a healthy choice snack. It could be peanut butter with crackers. It could be a piece of fruit, but they will have their snack at 2:00. From there, they will do some small activities, and then we'll do what we call a cool down. That's where we get them more relaxed as they will be returning home to their loved ones. The thing about the center that is nice is that it's for individuals who require supervision, and it allows if it's an elderly parent, the kids can still go to school or go to work while mom or dad is at the center, and they can know that they're under good care, being taken care of by qualified staff. It's also an opportunity for those who are still young and working and may have a disabled child. That adult could come to the daycare center. Mom and dad, and I'm sorry, that's my dog. Dot. Can then enjoy working still and not have to have one of the parents remain home. So we will then at 3:00 start loading everyone. all staff on deck. They all help to get everyone loaded onto the buses, and then the buses all leave together because it requires everyone to help load everyone onto those vehicles. And that's the end of the day at the Marian Birchadol Daycare Center. We are connected to the Calhoun County Medical Care Facility, which is a nursing home. It's 120 bed. Some of our individuals who have been in the daycare have gone over to the nursing home side once their health gets to the point where they really need skilled nursing services. But the goal is to keep them at home, keep them linked to their community for as long as possible. Are there any questions? So I have a question. It says, how can I connect a senior to your services if I need respite care assistance? So one of the things that we do offer at Marian Birchadol Daycare Center is a variety of funding sources to help offset the cost of the daycare. So depending on, and what we will do is during the admission time, look at their income and then look at all of the funding sources and their requirements and find a source of income or funding to assist in paying for the daycare services. So I have several different funding pools of money that I can look at, as well as Marian Birch Adult Daycare Center has its we are a 501c3. So it allows us to use some of the dollars that we raise through fundraising to help offset that cost. Does Medicaid or Medicare pay for your service? No, they do not. However, Medicaid has what is called a waiver program. So the incomes are a lot higher. They still require the $2,000 asset limit, but you can reach out to a waiver agent who has those Medicaid waiver dollars to access their program, and they refer their participants to Marian Birch for adult daycare services. And here in Calhoun County, it would be what's called now Milestone Senior Services out of Kalamazoo and Carewell Services here in Battle Creek. Is transportation provided to all seniors in your program? Yes, it is. As long as they live in Calhoun County. Marian Birch Adult Daycare Center receives funding through the Michigan Department of Transportation. We have 7 vehicles, and that is all purchased through what's called the 5310 program, as long as they are in Calhoun County. How would someone who is interested in working apply for employment? Yay! We say yay. So what you would do is get on Indeed and put in Calhoun County Medical Care Facility, and all of our job postings are listed there. And I know for a fact that CNAs, LPNs, and RNs are all needed. In our church, if our church would like to visit with your residents, what is the process to become connected? So if there is an individual residing on the medical care side, because the daycare right now is not open, they do have visits. You just come into the nursing home side. You log in at the receptionist desk. It's a mandate through the Center of Medicaid and Medicare Services. And then you can go and see the resident that you're going there to visit. And if they're in a shared room, they have to go into one of our visitation rooms. What are your age requirements for the program? So it's 18 years of age and older. A lot of times what we find is that those individuals who are 18 to 26 usually go through Doris Clausen and then end up coming to us because they can't attend once they're 26 or older. But we can take individuals 18 and older. Do you hire certified medical assistants? So we hire CNAs, which are certified medical nursing aides. But I'm thinking, if I'm reading this right, you're talking like a medical assistant in a doctor's office. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So I would suggest calling and talking to our HR, which is Tracy, and ask her if they would take a certified medical assistant instead of a certified nursing aide, and see what they say. Any other questions? Okay, if not, if you do have questions down the road, please give me a call. I will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. If, like I said, if you're looking for employment, please get on Indeed and take a look at what positions are available. Thank you, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening. It is such a great honor and privilege to be here with everybody today, giving honor to God, who is the head of my life. My name is Brianna Foster, and I am a member of the Great Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church, and I am also a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner student at the University of Toledo. Our next presenter, Amy Ryman, is a community engagement liaison. She is a graduate of Albion College, as well as a graduate of the University of Michigan. And Amy serves as a link between the community and the Summit Point organization. And without further ado, Miss Amy Ryman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for that. It's really funny. I was raised in Toledo. Go Rockets. That's really exciting. You almost said University of Toledo. My husband would be thrilled. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your time tonight. I really appreciate everybody sticking with it. It's been a great 2 days of presentations. I'm here to talk for you for a little bit about Summit Point and what Summit Point does for our community for mental health and some of the different services that are available, just so everybody's aware. I do have a PowerPoint. I think they're going to put that up. Yay. So Summit Point is the name of our community mental health agency. In the past, they were all just called community mental health agencies. A lot of them around the state, though, have adopted a different name. Summit Point is our community mental health for Calhoun County. For instance, Jackson and Hillsdale, there's this called Lifeways. Integrated Services of Kalamazoo is for Kalamazoo County. Just so that you're a little familiar with what that term means. Next slide, please. So so my name's Amy Ryman. I'm on the community engagement team, and my email is here. We can come back to that at the end. If you have any questions or you think of later you'd like to ask me, we are more than happy to answer those. So what are some of the services that Summit Point provides? Throughout the county, our main, what we would call catchment, would be our Medicaid eligible individuals in the county. But we do have services that range across the board for everybody. But some of the services we do have: case management. These are for people who are having behavioral health issues. Assertive community treatment. This is a team of people that's out in the community who help a specific set of individuals with their at-home needs. Perhaps they can't manage their medication. but they're out there one-on-one helping with some individuals in our community. Our outpatient services, these would be therapy services for adults, also youth services. We have therapy, we have wraparound services, in-school services. We do run a supported employment service. This is for individuals who need that extra help with a job, job skills. And then, of course, we do a lot of substance use treatment services and a lot of substance use treatment support. And we are going to talk about some of those specific things a little bit later. Next slide. One of our big new services in the county is First Step. And First Step is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week psychiatric urgent care. First Step is open to everyone and anyone, not just people from our county as well. It's for anyone and everyone. If you are struggling with some of your behavioral or mental health or substance use issues and you just don't know where to go, First Step is a first step for you to take. You can go there, get an assessment, be seen by a professional, and then get some tools and some treatment to get you on your way. So again, we see people who are in crisis. We see people who are not in crisis. We do crisis-related services. So if you do have a friend or family member who is in crisis, you can take them there. This site is on College Street, which a lot of you may have known as the Regional Medical Lab. It might look familiar. The front part of the building here is for First Step. You can go there 24/7. You can call 24/7 and get some advice. What we want people to know, so if you are coming or bringing someone with you who's in crisis, we need you to understand that it has to be a voluntary thing. It always has to be someone saying, I need help, I want help, and I'm willing to go. It also needs to be someone who is not in an active withdrawal or physically cannot be intoxicated or combative or experiencing signs or symptoms of active withdrawal. So again, we still want those people to go to an emergency room and be seen there so that their physical symptoms can be managed. But if you are willing and able and voluntary and are ready to and need some help, this is where you do want to go. We do advertise the crisis number for this. We'll put that on the screen a little later, but it is 1-800-632-5449. People will monitor this phone number 24/7. Any kind of crisis, you can call and get help. Any kind of question about mental health or substance use issues, you can call that number and get help. Other services that are available here, so law enforcement can be activated to help people come here, again, if they're voluntary and non-combative. So law enforcement, we do have a great section of our law enforcement who are crisis intervention trained, and they can be of help when you're in a crisis and you're calling. If you do end up calling 911, you can ask for a crisis intervention trained officer. We have about 25% of the law enforcement in our county who are trained for this through all different areas, all different forces, Albion included. Albion, Battle Creek, the sheriff. We have 8 law enforcement agencies in our county, and about 20% of them are trained to come and help in a crisis. And so you can ask for that specifically when you call dispatch. Our dispatchers are also trained to recognize what is a behavioral health or a substance use crisis, and they can help get the right officers to the scene as well, which is a great thing. Calhoun County is actually one of the leaders in the state in this, and not only are we leaders ourselves, but our staff actually go out and help train other forces in other counties and in other states to help get them up to speed and how to do this. We've been doing this in our county for almost 3 years. And statistics show that we've had about 1,000 encounters of law enforcement in these different crisis situations, and less than 10 of them have resulted in people going to jail. The rest of them have been crisis resolution and getting them to the appropriate either recovery services or to First Step for help. Many of you may have remembered that we had a recovery center in Battle Creek. The recovery center staff all work at First Step now, and the recovery center on Roosevelt is now an outpatient treatment center. And all of our crisis teams and all of our recovery and peer coaches are right there at First Step to help where they're needed most all the time. So let's talk about some other Summit Point sites. There's the next slide. So we do have 5 sites. Summit Point, Albion, many of you are aware, we've had a site in Albion for many years. It has moved. It's moved a couple times in the last couple of years, but it's now located in the first floor of the Munger building, which is right next to Bigby. Oak Lawn's urgent care is in the lower level, and we are on the first floor. You can park in the parking area all the way closest to the upper level. You get into the parking lot, you go all the way around and then across the front porch and go in those doors. And that's where our Summit Point Albion site is. This is not a crisis center, and they are not open 24/7. They do not actually do walk-ins, but that is if you're going to the Albion site where you're going. They do a lot of group work there, and they have a lot of patients that they do see there on a regular basis. But it's a really great addition. Albion College, their partnership has made us welcome in this beautiful building, and we are really happy to be there. Next to that is our First Step building. Again, this is on College Street in Battle Creek. We have our Summit Point South. This is off Capitol Ave. A lot of you might be familiar. It was previously named Lakeview, but that is a lot of outpatient therapy is done there. A lot of youth services. Our youth team is centered there. Summit Point Roosevelt, that's on the really short Roosevelt up on the north side of Battle Creek. We do a lot of outpatient therapy there. And then we do, of course, have the Summit Point Autism Center. And that is also off Capitol, but it's right closer to Beckley than we would consider our south site. The Autism Center there, they do a lot of screening. They do a lot of patient interaction. Most of the people who attend there are toddlers through early elementary age, but they do screenings, and they do assessments for autistic people of up to the age of 21. So again, you can receive services there, or they will help assess and then find you a place for you to go. Let's go to the next one. Important numbers. So our main number, if you're calling for an appointment, you're calling for any kind of a non-emergency question, you want to use the 269-966-1460. That will get you to our central operations, and they will get you to, if you want to call the Albion site, they will help get you there. The Albion number that was local now all feeds into this main trunk line, and our support staff can help with anything you're trying to get a hold of. Again, our crisis number is 632-5449. And then we do have the ICS. We do have a youth mobile crisis number on here. A lot of people don't have this memorized, but you can call the 24-hour number. They will get you to the youth team if it is a youth that you are needing assistance with, right there on that number too. Let's talk about some other things that are coming up for us. May is Mental Health Month. So we try to do a lot of special things for Mental Health Month in May. We have 2 big things going on. We have a Wellness Expo that will be held May 18th. That'll be in the Battle Creek YMCA Multisports Complex. A lot of you know where that is, located off Cherry Street at the Battle Creek Y. It'll be from 4 to 7 p.m. and there'll be entertainment. We have a schedule of speakers. We have some exercise classes. We'll have a ton of booths. Our partners will be there. And Firekeepers has donated 500 boxed meals. We'll have a bouncy house. We have a face painter and a balloon, animal guy, and all kinds of fun things going on. But then a lot of booths for different wellness activities, different mental health activities for kids and adults alike. So come out and join us. And we're going to have a great time there. We'll have some flyers that are going to go to pretty much every mailbox in the county right around the 1st of May. Second thing that we're doing is going to be right here in Albion. We're going to be screening a film titled Coming Up for Air. And this is about a college student. This is a local film that was filmed in the west side of Michigan. We're really excited. The filmmaker is going to come. This is about a college student and his struggle with mental health. And it really does underscore the need for communities to be ready for crisis and to be ready to band together to solve mental health issues. We're going to show this on May 24th at 5:30 at the Bohm. and it will be free for everybody. And we will have a panel of experts to talk about a few things after the film and to take some questions. The filmmaker is going to come. Our very own Jody May, the head coach at Albion College for basketball, is going to be there. He's going to talk about a couple things. And Milton Barnes of Playwright Academy is going to also be there and talk about mental health and athletes and all those great things. And we're really excited for this. We're bringing this, like I said, bringing this filmmaker over who actually has another tie to Albion. His wife worked in Albion. She worked for the Woodlands Library Cooperative, and they're very excited to be coming back and joining us in Albion. Next slide. So training, we do trainings and have some of other things that are available for the greater community that I wanted people to know about. Right there in the middle is our crisis intervention logo, which is our law enforcement training that we spend a lot of time working with our law enforcement agencies. We do teach mental health first aid now that we're kind of coming out post-pandemic here. We'll be having some mental health first aid classes that'll be available around the county. These will pretty much be no cost, but just how to be aware of mental health issues and how to be a more proactive individual. And we're looking forward to being able to bring those to the community. We're going to have a couple of extra trainers on staff so that we'll be able to come out in the community and do those. In the top right corner is a thing called the QPR Institute. QPR is a suicide prevention facilitation. And it's the initials stand for question, persuade, refer. And what this is a program of how to talk about suicide, how to recognize signs and symptoms in your friends, neighbors, colleagues. And we want this to be as well known as CPR, which also saves lives. This is, again, we have a full-time suicide prevention facilitator for our county. His name is Scott Tishmer. And he's available to present this training to anybody who needs it. There is a weekly training online on Zoom, or a monthly, I take that back, I'm so sorry, a monthly training. It's the third Thursday of the month. So that's going to be April 21st. That's coming up this Thursday. It takes 60 to 90 minutes to go through the entire program, but you can join for free. You can take it, it's no cost. And then again, it's mainly to recognize the signs and symptoms and know what to say. If you have friends or neighbors, children, grandchildren, colleagues, coworkers who you might think might end up getting into the weeds with negative thoughts, and this is how to turn those around. So we're real excited to bring this to the community. Like I said, Scott Tishmer has worked with us for almost a year. And we're real excited to have his talents. And we'll have some information at the end if you'd like to get a hold of how to do that. And then that last logo in the bottom right-hand corner is for our Veteran Services Coordinator and Navigator, Michelle Pasco. So the other thing that Summit Point has is a full-time Veteran Services Navigator. So if you know a vet who needs any kind of help, that's Michelle's job. Anything that they need, enrolled in services, finding their discharge papers, getting them to the VA, getting them anywhere they need to go. If it's a veteran's issue or if it's a veteran who needs help, Michelle is there to help do anything that they need. She comes to Albion pretty frequently. She's been over here to meet with the American Legion and the VFW, to meet people, get herself out there and get herself known. She's been with Summit Point about 20 years. Michelle herself is a veteran, and she's taken on this role over the last couple of years, and we've kind of taken it on full time. So if you know anybody who needs help with any kind of veteran services or who is a veteran, that is Michelle's job. So we are very excited to be able to bring that to the county as well. I think I might have one more slide. Yeah, so we do have social media. This QR code, if you're not familiar, that round circle on the right, if you hold your phone up to the screen and take a picture with your camera, open your camera up and hold it over that symbol, it will take you to a place where you can sign up to be on Summit Point's mailing list. And we can send you our updates. We do that through Constant Contact. So if you're not familiar with the QR code, this is your big chance. So excited. And then we also have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, and we have YouTube. If you follow us on Facebook, we post all of our events there. We post all of our different things that are coming up. We have mindfulness videos on Mondays. LinkedIn, if you're interested in being employed with Summit Point, that's where you can find all that information. We also will link on our new website. I meant to actually put a link to our website here. We have a brand new website we just rolled out last week. So check us out, summitpoint.org. And I would be happy to take any kind of questions people have. It is, you know what, if you call so the question is, can you call 911 or 211 to access our service? If you're having an emergency, you can call 911 and you can ask for a CIT trained officer. That's the key there. And dispatch is trained also to recognize that if you're having a mental health crisis or you have someone you're with that's having a mental health crisis, yes, you can call 911. If you call 211 and are looking for first step, they have all of our information and they can get you those numbers. So yes, we are fully integrated with both of those different services if you need help. You know what? I did think of one more thing that I meant to put in my presentation. I apologize. We do have a great online website called Credible Mind. You can get there from summitpoint.org, and you can take assessments. How am I doing? How's my anxiety? So scroll through our main page and look for Credible Mind. It's a free online resource. If you're not in crisis, it's great to use just to keep track of how you're doing, how those things are all going. A question is, if a vet needs housing, can they connect with Summit Point? Yes, absolutely. You want to call that main number, the 966-1460, and you want to ask for the veteran navigator, and she will help with all of that. She'll get you enrolled. She comes to the shelters, and she helps find people, do all that stuff, navigate everything, and get them where they need to go. So yes, absolutely. Any other questions I can help with? Well, I'm really happy to be here. I have information if anybody needs me. Again, if you wanted to email me, Ryman@summitpoint.org, or call the number and ask for me. I'm more than happy to bring brochures, pamphlets, anything that you need. We will hopefully see you in May. We like to be here in Albion. We'll be at the other wellness expos that are going on, the Health and Safety Expo that I know Marquetta is real active in, and we're here. I've lived in Albion for 26 years, and I'm really happy to be able to serve the community through Summit Point in this capacity. So I thank you very much for inviting us. Please invite us back. We would love to be here, and if I can be of any help or of any service, Marquetta definitely knows how to get a hold of me very easily. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Amy Ryman. Such a wealth of information. Summit Point is the premier mental health services for Calhoun County. If you know someone that is suffering, they are the first step, as she has said, to wellness. So please make sure you take note of that this evening. We are at the conclusion of our night. Wow. It was awesome. Day one was jam-packed, full of information about all types of great things. You can go back on our page, Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church, and you can watch day one. It is posted directly to our page, and this night will be posted tomorrow. So please go back and look at something that you might have missed, and go back and look back at it, because we're here to help. And if these resources are of use to you, we want it to be useful in the community. We would like to thank the people that presented this evening: Sister Charmaine Bogan, Mayor Garcia Snyder, Sister Melita Robinson, Mr. Anthony Allen, such an awesome presentation on coping with trauma, Sister Renita Craig, Dr. William Nettleton talking about COVID-19, Mrs. Mary Frisbee, talking about elder care. Our elders are important to us. And Sister Brianna Foster and Miss Amy Ryman. And she talked about the First Step Mental Health Crisis and Urgent Care Center that is open here in Calhoun County. I also want to thank our pastor, Bobby J. Mckenzie. He is the leader and the head of this church, and he allows us to explore and to share the gifts that are in the house with the community, and we definitely appreciate his wisdom and leadership as we move forward with these types of programs. Also, our First Lady, Justine Mckenzie. I could not do this without her. She and I worked very closely with with our team, and we hope that you all enjoyed this evening's information. We also want to thank our media team, Mr. Danon Reed and Sister Christina Crawford. They are the arm. They are how we reach so many people all over the world. And so we definitely appreciate our media team for helping us to reach one and teach one. I also want to thank those that talked about employment opportunities. Albion is always looking for those opportunities. So there are some jobs out there, people, for certified people. So please connect with us if you would like more information about those options, and just know that there are jobs available. We are Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church, and we want to make sure that you know that your mind, body, and soul is important to us. Your mind matters. I'm your host, Marquetta Frost, and we want to thank you for this evening, and have a great night.